Summoning Jutsu!
FBI, open up!
Kankuro got a horrible role when it comes to genetics. Tamari has 2 fully realized eyes, whereas Kankuro has 2 dots.
Huh?
So what's up? What's all the ruckus?
You idiots! Didn't I tell you not to let him out of your sight for a second?
Huh?
What? Why are they freaking out now? Remember last episode?
Hey, I thought you were told not to let Gaara out of your sight, Kankuro.
Oh, don't worry. Even someone like him wouldn't dare to do anything in broad daylight.
In universe, that was a few minutes ago. At least, it should be. The filler dick measuring contest makes things confusing. Naruto supposedly held on to Gamabunta until just before sunset. Considering it's daylight at the start of this episode, that means it's now the next day, meaning Gaara's been missing for a whole day doing who knows what. Except, that's not true either. It's later revealed that Naruto has been unconscious for 3 days. That means for 3 days in a row, Gaara has been MIA and either Kankuro, Tamari, or Baki has noticed up until now. I will give props to the manga since Naruto instantly fell unconscious and woke up in the hospital. There weren't any scenes suggesting Gaara has been roaming around freely for 3 days. We can assume Gaara tracked down Sasuke during that time and was warded off by Kakashi, making Lee his next target. Hey look, an hourglass. Naruto must be training on hyperbolic. Oh wait, no, he's in the hospital.
You're wasting your time if those are for Sasuke.
How does Sakura keep getting surprised that Ino is working in her family's shop? Not to mention, she walked right past her when she walked in.
Here you go. Thank you. Tell him hi. I hope he's feeling better.
Unlikely. His whole world would nuke harder than Alderaan. It's gonna take more than a few weeks to recover from that. This scene feels kind of off to me. Naruto has never been a horror anime, yet that's definitely what they were shooting for here. The only thing horrifying about this scene is the fact that they decided to include that thing. It's cool that Gaara's influence extended to the hourglass just by stepping into the hospital. It kinda reminds me of Darth Sidious on his way to kill Savage and Maul. I think the goal was to imply Gaara may be going after Naruto, which is supposed to add a layer of suspense.
Huh? The sand stopped? What's up with that? Did they forget to wind it or something?
Why is Shikamaru, the 200 plus IQ tuning level ninja, making such a blatantly absurd observation? Did they forget to wind this thing up?
So, you decided to wake up, huh?
The writers threw away a perfectly good opportunity to make a Skyrim reference, and that is completely unforgivable.
Where am I? What is this?
The hospital. They said you've been out cold like this for 3 days straight.
Something tells me they didn't even try to use medical ninjutsu on Naruto. They probably just looked at him and thought, oi, it's that Ninetales brat. He be aight. Naruto has been unconscious for the past 3 days, so I know for a fact that his breath is a calculable threat right now. Also, why is his trash can nearly full with crumpled up pieces of paper? Naruto wasn't writing anything, so either the trash can hasn't been dumped in days, or someone else has been visiting Naruto. Hinata?
Well, you two are just lucky I'm around, or you wouldn't have any visitors. Here.
Oh, wow, this looks delicious!
I like how Naruto only wipes off one side of the fruit as if that cleans the whole thing. I doubt the doctor decided to plop Naruto in the bath before tucking him in, though his hands are still dirty from 3 days ago when he was hanging on to Gamabunta.
What the? Where is everybody?
Good question, Sakura. All the employees going out to lunch simultaneously is pretty idiotic. If Naruto, Choji, Lee, or whoever else in attendance needed assistance, they'd be SOL. Not to mention, people like Gaara can just walk in freely. On a side note, the slight ambience modification really adds to the scene. Sakura's footsteps are more pronounced and her voice sounds like she's speaking in an empty room. On top of that, you can hear the analog clock, which definitely adds to the spooky factor. Oh no! Gaara's gonna kill Sakura! Quick! Somebody save her! Well geez, don't all go at once. I know this wasn't intentional, but man does Sakura have a bobblehead. Ah, a shadow! This episode is so scary! And now the wind's blowing and Sakura's walking and now there's a shadow and oh, the horror! In all seriousness though, why would Gaara hide from Sakura? He could've just A, walked straight past her, or B, one-shot her and kept it pushing. It's not like Gaara has a reason to fear Sakura or anything. I'm confused here. Did we just time travel? Sakura is clearly already in Lee's room, putting down the flower in the scene prior. Now she's re-entering the room to put the vase down for a second time. Not to mention, it's the middle of the day, so why is Lee unconscious? Just what kind of drugs did they give Lee? Later on, Gaara claims the only reason he wants to kill Lee is to feel alive, and that it was nothing personal, but that's clearly a lie. Gaara has a complete mental breakdown just like he did in the arena from the mere sight of Lee. He's still incapable of understanding why Guy saved Lee, despite being told from the devil's mouth directly and having a moment to think about it. Even if we didn't get those flashbacks to disprove Gaara's claim, do these really look like nothing personal, kid? Eyes to you?
I can't move my body.
The thought of shadow projection being capable of stopping someone's flow of chakra has never made sense. It's a jutsu that physically incapacitates people, not one that locks down their chakra network. Not to mention, Gaara was using his mind more than his arm muscles to control his sand, so you think he'd be able to continue doing that. Chunin level Shikamaru should know the ins and outs of his own signature jutsu. There's no reason for him to fall for this. Another thing worth noting is Kurora didn't even move the sand to protect Gaara from Naruto's punch. That directly goes against what Kankuro said in a previous episode. Gaara isn't supposed to have control over whether or not the sand defends him. At the very least, Naruto should remember that since he was standing right next to Kankuro and was extremely surprised by that revelation. This whole scene is extremely contrived in my opinion. In order to fool the audience into believing Shikamaru's shadow projection jutsu worked, Shikamaru and Naruto had to forget everything about Gaara's abilities. If you want to make the argument for Naruto forgetting, go at it. I won't stop you. But there's absolutely no excuse for Shikamaru forgetting other than plot-induced stupidity. Shikamaru is talking, but Gaara's mouth isn't moving. I guess the shadow projection jutsu didn't work after all. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, if we're all supposed to believe Gaara is incapacitated, are we all just supposed to ignore the fact that Gaara is using his sand armor? A logical question one might have is, since Gaara can still control his chakra to use sand armor, why isn't he capable of controlling the rest of his sand? You can make an excuse for his gore since once it's solidified, it's possible that it remains that way until altered, similar to how a water burner can freeze water and it stays frozen. However, Gaara's sand armor is different. Kankuro explicitly stated that Gaara only uses his sand armor when he's being serious. In case you don't remember, here's a clip.
Ordinarily, those shifting clouds of sand are enough to shield him. But in the event the shield is penetrated, Gaara can also wear the sand like armor, as a last line of defense.
Not to mention, Gaara's sand armor takes a huge toll on his chakra reserves. According to this scene, Gaara walks around encoded in sand armor at all times, and it doesn't put any strain on him. Hell, he doesn't even have to think about it. Itachi could probably put Gaara on his Tsukinome, and inside his mind, Gaara would still be wearing his sand armor. You may think I'm just being facetious, but I'm not. Another thing to acknowledge is Naruto's punch shattered Gaara's armor, so I guess he hits just as hard as Lee does. I'd also like to point out after Naruto shattered Gaara's armor, in the next scene, Gaara's face is repaired and the armor chippings are no longer on the floor. The only logical conclusion is Gaara repaired his armor. So since he did that, why didn't Naruto and Shikamaru see that? Shouldn't they also notice that Gaara is moving, and the only way he could possibly move while wearing his sand armor is if he was in fact controlling the sand, since if he weren't, it would essentially just be rock solid and, unmalleable. Also, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but shouldn't the sand on Lee have fallen? At the very least, the sand on his face should have. There are so many things Shikamaru should have picked up on that he just didn't. Lelouch, Light, and L would have noticed. Shaking my head.
Out with it! What were you trying to pull?
Relax, Naruto. He was just giving him a massage with his sand.
Hey, Choji, feeling better?
Ino!
All right, a pretty girl with food. This is my lucky day.
As a man, I can confirm that Choji's reaction is 100% accurate.
This guy's one cool customer. Look at him. He's not even fazed by my shadow possession jutsu.
I mean, he was a few seconds ago, but I guess we're just gonna pretend like that never happened.
If you don't stay out of my way, I'll have to kill you two as well.
Hot take. Gaara definitely isn't right in the head, but he isn't as bad as some people make him out to be. He intentionally avoided Sakura and presumably Ino, meaning he didn't want to confront and more than likely kill them. It's not like him killing Sakura would have given him away or anything. She was practically propped up, just waiting to be killed, and Gaara just didn't do it.
Oh, really? Well, let's just see you try it!
Hey, whoa, kid, take it easy.
It's kinda strange to refer to someone else as a kid when you yourself are a kid. Seriously, what kind of drug did they give to Lee? You'd think he'd at least waken up with all the shouting going on near him, but he hasn't even flinched. Why is Gaara not moving right now? This scene breaks the law of shadow possession. Ah, the suspense! Sakura could be potentially returning to Lee's room. Gaara has no chance if Sakura arrives.
Well, I guess that means he's alright.
The sudden sound of the hourglass implied the sand wasn't falling when Sakura entered the room, meaning Gaara intentionally stopped the sand in the hourglass when he came into range. What a dick.
Idiot.
Wait, what? That's definitely not the sound elbowing someone's arm would make.
He can act like a demon if he wants to, but you know what? I got the real thing inside of me!
A demon, huh? My demon is as real as yours is.
This is the only real gripe I have with the anime versus the manga. In the manga, Gaara says, "A monster, eh? Actually, I've got one of those too." Which makes Gaara seem more like a character interacting with another character versus an NPC. What I mean by that is, in the anime, Gaara replies to Naruto saying he has a demon inside of him with, "A demon, huh? My demon is as real as yours is." That line doesn't make any sense. Now, you can come to 3 conclusions from that line. 1. Gaara knows Naruto has Kurama inside of him because Shukaku told him. 2. Gaara stalked Naruto just like he did Sasuke and somehow managed to evade Jiraiya's and Gamabunta's detection while also overhearing Jiraiya talk about controlling Kurama's power. Or 3. Gaara is a fan of Imagined Dragons and is referring to the inner demons that everyone has within them. All 3 of those conclusions only serve to confuse us. As the audience, we know Naruto has Kurama sit within him, but the anime makes Gaara metagame that knowledge.
To ensure that I became the strongest of shinobi, my father had cast his ninjutsu on me, infusing my unborn self with a sand spirit.
Holy Raza, what is wrong with you? That is brutal. I get that the sand was in dire need of strength to keep the village alive, but that's way too far. Can you imagine if Minato activated Demon Time, released Kurama from Kushina, then sealed Kurama inside of Naruto? I think that'd make an interesting spinoff. Darth Minato, bringing peace, freedom, justice, and security to his new empire.
I destroyed the life of a woman who gave birth to me.
That's a strange way to say your mother, but go off, King.
Its name is Shukaku, and it's the living incarnation of an old monk of the Sand Village who'd been sealed up in a jar of tea.
I don't know about you guys, but when I hear jar of tea, I imagine a mason jar full with tea. Obviously the jar is on screen, but the first impression I got of Shukaku was marinating inside a jar with a bunch of tea in it. The anime probably should have just said tea kettle like the manga did. Look at Naruto in the background. His face screams, "Oh, Snitzel, I done screwed up. Say something, bro."
Can it be true? He's got one inside of him too?
Bars, Naruto. That's what I'm talking about. Most of y'all probably don't pay attention to this, but Naruto has always had bars. Let's think back to episode 6.
I will never run away, and I will not lose to Sasuke.
Gee, what a swell guy your dad must have been. He really must have loved you a lot.
What? Why would Shikamaru say that? Wasn't he the one that said, "Whoa, Naruto, chill. There's no sense in riling this guy up. He's on demon time." So why is he sarcastically antagonizing Gaara now?
You speak of love? Don't measure me by your standards.
Honestly, I think this scene doesn't get enough credit. The dialogue and acting in this scene is incredible. I know I mentioned a slight blunder earlier when Gaara metagames Naruto, but that doesn't mean the whole scene is doo-doo. When it comes to emotional scenes like this, the anime will almost always win over the manga. The ambience and voice acting possibilities allow for animated pictures to carry much more weight. In this scene, even the dialogue is better. In the manga, Shikamaru says, "Heh, what kind of parent does a thing like that? What twisted love?" And Gaara replies with, "Love? Don't judge me by your standards." Compare that to the anime.
You speak of love? Don't measure me by your standards.
It's a completely different energy. What's great about the difference in energy is it fleshes out Gaara as a character. We all know Gaara is almost always on demon time. There has only been a few times when Gaara hasn't been. One of those times was referenced earlier in the episode. In fact, I've talked about this revelation myself already. What I'm referring to is Guy saving Lee. Gaara expected Guy to off Lee like Vegeta did to Nappa. Then on top of that, Naruto also rested Lee's side. Y'all remember how Gaara looked during all that, right? He stayed to see Lee being sent off, then afterwards appeared to be in deep thought. The Gaara that we saw then is being expanded upon here. Back to the dialogue though. In the manga, Gaara's reply seems more like he's trying to instill fear. It's weird. I don't know how to completely explain it, but you can see how he's portrayed in the manga. Now peep the anime.
Love. Family.
Gaara sounds hurt and betrayed. The way he says, love, family. You can hear the pain in his voice. Before Gaara dives deeper into his backstory, you can tell that he didn't used to always be like this. It's excellent foreshadowing. Gaara's backstory has been getting built upon this whole time. When he first broke down in the arena, we were all thinking, why are you like this? Who hurt you? Then we see his family, and everyone but his mother appears to hate him. Baki told us that Gaara's whole existence is to be a super soldier, and Gaara confirms that. I'd like to make another quick comparison between the anime and the manga, and surprise surprise, the anime takes the cake again. Just look at Gaara's facial expression while he's speaking. Sure, you can hear the sound of his voice, which adds more depth to his expression. But just ignore Gaara speaking and look at his face. He looks extremely depressed. In the manga, his eyes are wide open on some serial killer energy. His story is still the same, but you can sympathize more with anime Gaara than you can with manga Gaara. At least, I can.
Given life by the death of my mother, I was brought into being and nurtured as the salvation of the village.
I know Gaara is telling his story, but the way he brings up killing his mother by being born again makes it seem like that fact seriously bothers him. Now obviously, that would bother just about anybody, but Gaara isn't just anybody, he's Gaara.
And that was when everything started.
When what started?
What was it? Are you gonna tell us or not? So go on! What started? What was it?
Naruto has the patience of Dory. I guarantee if you put Naruto in a room with some ramen and told him if you waited 10 minutes before eating it, he'd get another cup, he'd finish that bowl of ramen before you even finished that sentence.
In the 6 years since I became 6 years old, my father tried to destroy me more times than I can count.
Yep, that there is a pretty solid reason for Gaara being the way he is. I don't think a single solid argument can be made against it. I love how Shikamaru is doing his best to remain stoic about this whole ordeal. He's still slacking in terms of awareness, but at least he's doing his best to keep himself and Naruto in the game.
Those who get to be too strong are apt to become feared.
I'm still baffled how Shikamaru doesn't notice all the moving Gaara is doing right now. Maybe Shikamaru is letting Gaara do these subtle movements by mentally focusing on only keeping Gaara's legs in place and not the rest of his body. Although, Gaara did turn towards him earlier, but I guess we can assume that Shikamaru also allowed Gaara to do that. But even if all that is true, I wouldn't be letting Gaara move at all if I were Shikamaru.
The jutsu that gave me birth had unbalanced something in my mind. Even the fools in my village finally realized I had emotional problems.
I'm surprised Gaara and Shikaku have never spoken before. Maybe they have and it just hasn't been shown. I don't know. But I generally don't see how Gaara and Shikaku wouldn't identify with one another. Shikaku is a member of the Hate All Humans clan, and Gaara isn't too fond of humans either. So you think they'd be able to form some sort of bond. Instead, Shikaku would rather fight Gaara for control 24/7 and prevent him from sleeping at night.
My father, the Kazekage, had created me as his ultimate weapon, but I eventually became a threat to the very village I was meant to save.
To be fair, that only happened because Gaara was treated as a tool, not as a person. This whole shinobi system is flawed and causes so much suffering. If only there was someone with the foresight and the ability to end all of that suffering.
So you see, I had failed at the one purpose for which I was given life. What then was left for me in this existence? Why go on living? For a long time, I couldn't find an answer to that. But in order to live, you need a purpose.
Gaara is actually spitting mad facts here. To live without a purpose isn't even living. Not having a purpose is one of the worst, if not the worst feeling in the world. On top of that, you have no desires, no goals, no interests, and the moment you start becoming interested in something else, that also becomes tainted. So you start to despise that as well. You're nothing more than an empty husk with little desire to move or eat. When I was going through my dark time, I still had family. As Naruto acknowledges later, Gaara didn't have anybody. It's scary to think how different things would have gone if I were truly alone. It is a truly difficult thing to explain with words. It's one of those you have to experience it in order to truly understand kind of things. Naruto did a great job by showing that. Shikamaru with a 200 plus IQ couldn't understand, while Naruto with his around 100 IQ understood perfectly fine. A real world example I can give of this comes from David Gogginson's book, You Can't Hurt Me. If you haven't read it yet, I recommend giving it a read. Anyway, there's a section in his book where he talks about these twin brothers that were always in perfect sync mentally and emotionally. They always understood each other, and given proper knowledge, can replace each other in their day-to-day lives. That was true up until one brother went through the Navy SEAL Hell Week and the other one did not. Hell Week changed the twin that went through it so much that the other twin could no longer relate. That all changed after the second twin completed Hell Week himself.
I live solely for myself. I love only myself. As it was the death of my mother that first gave me life, now it is the death of others that sustains me, that makes me almost happy to be alive.
Very poetic, Gaara. For us English-only folk, zooming in on Gaara's forehead made zero sense. Unless you go completely out of your way to find out what those markings mean, you likely thought it was just a random tattoo. However, the symbol on his head is kanji for love. If you could read it, this is where you'd go, oh, so that's why he has love written on his forehead. Gaara is talking in this scene, but his jaw isn't moving.
I don't think I can beat this guy!
Hey, where are you going? What's wrong?
Gaara's stand resembling the hourglass this episode started off with is such a nice touch. The hourglass resuming function after Sakura set up this reveal perfectly, so there's no way Studio Para wasn't trying to tie that in.
He shouldn't be able to do that. Not with my shadow possession jutsu on him.
Oh yeah? And why is that exactly? It's a good thing Shikamaru never had to fight Itachi or he'd be in for a rude awakening. One thing I forgot to mention is that this is a pivotal moment for Naruto. This interaction with Gaara served to shape Naruto's worldview in terms of being grateful for the little things. He probably didn't appreciate Iruka stepping into his life nearly as much as he does now. Naruto also learned that although he held his Kurama, that doesn't make him a monster. Had circumstances been slightly different, he'd be Gaara. We don't know about Obito yet, but had his circumstances been slightly different, perhaps in a different direction, he'd be Obito.
Now, let me feel alive.
Incoming! Alright, that's enough.
What exactly was Shikamaru planning on doing if Gai hadn't intervened? Naruto was petrified and he didn't move at all.
Don't leave me alone. I'm not bleeding, but it hurts a lot. What am I? What am I?
Yeah, I won't lie. That's tough. I don't have much to say that I haven't already said, so instead, I would like you all to join me in pressing F in Gaara's honor. On a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Gaara looks like he's close enough for that gourd to hit Guy, yet he walks right past him. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes episode 58. I appreciate that the majority of the episode is dedicated to the trio talking. This episode didn't need any action scenes to make it good. The dialogue alone was good enough to keep it entertaining. If you made it this far and you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can be notified when I release future episodes of Overanalyzing Naruto. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay resolute. Deuces.
Ninja art and a video jutsu.